Shalom, shalom, shalom. Today we're going to be dealing with some questions that came up and some things that I've seen in Facebook as well. Just going through the word and explaining why these things are the way they are. An interlocutor is someone making an argument against what you're saying. So we'll begin on the tube of you. Tommy Taylor 4771. You just said it isn't common sense for the king to write out the Torah. And this is in regards to Deuteronomy 17, which I talked about a couple days ago, where it says, when you enter the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, possess it and live in it, you say, I will set a king over me. See, who is saying this? This is what they don't even notice because of their presupposition, their pretext. And this includes the Talmudists. Who is saying this? It's the rebellious heart of the people that want a human being to be king over them, just like all the nations who are around them. And you shall surely set a king over you, whom Yahweh your Elohim chooses, one from among your brothers. You shall set as king over yourselves. You may not put a foreigner over yourselves who is not your brother. This is important. Moreover, he shall not multiply horses for himself, nor shall he cause the people to return to Egypt to multiply. Shalom, sis. Yahweh has said to you, you shall never again return that way, and he shall not multiply wives for himself, or else his heart will turn away, nor shall he greatly increase silver and gold for himself. Now will it be when he sits on the throne of his kingdom, he shall write for himself a copy of this Torah on a scroll in the presence of the Levitical priests. And, I've heard Christians and Jews say this Torah is all of Genesis to Deuteronomy, that he's just sitting there being a scribe in the presence of the priests. I don't truly believe that's what Yah intended. It was that he write out this Torah, the statutes for a king, so that it is on his heart and he's meditating on it. Now, the point that Tommy was making here is that I was saying it wasn't common sense for the king to write out the Torah in his own hand because it's too much and not reasonable, and then prove that it's not much and perfectly reasonable because they did it on the stone you showed us. But remember what I said about the stone, and that's Deuteronomy 27, that when they get to Mount Ebal, they're to write out that Torah on a stone. And I was making the point that this is also not all of Genesis to Deuteronomy. It's not. That would take up an enormous amount of space on a stone and an enormous amount of time carving that into the stone. That's not what it meant. But and then his counter argument is just strange. Besides that, wasn't the Torah given to Moses only on 2 tablets? No, the 10 words were given to Moses on 2 tablets. The 10 words on 2 tablets is not unreasonable, and it was written by the finger of Yah. Then Elohim spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery. You shall have no other Elohim before me. You shall not make for yourself an idol, nor any likeness of what is in heaven above, or on the earth beneath, or in the water underneath. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I am Yahweh your Elohim. I'm a jealous Elohim, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children, on the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing loving kindness to the thousands, to those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not take the name of Yahweh your Elohim in vain, for Yahweh will not leave him unpunished who takes his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of Yahweh your Elohim. In it you shall not do any work, you or your son or your daughter, your male or your female slave, your cattle or your sojourners within your gates. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heavens and the earth, and the sea, and that is all that is in them, and rested on the 7th. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be prolonged in the land which Yahweh your Elohim gives you. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male slave, or his female slave, or his ox, or his donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor. That's what was on the two tablets. That's it. It didn't have the entire Torah. So I'm not even sure why he would bring that up as a counter argument. The two tablets were the 10 words. What the king wrote down would have been what applied to him, what was supposed to be meditated on him, so he wouldn't do what Solomon did. And what was on the stone at Mount Ebal was the blessings and the curses. That's it. And that's what I said to him last night. The stone didn't have Genesis to Deuteronomy on it. And then, again, in the same video, so now you're saying Samuel broke Torah by following God's direct command to anoint David as king. Yeah. He did. He did break Torah, but that's not the only time. Samuel actually sacrifices on high places. And that I didn't even mention that in the comment I wrote to him, but that's true. But even stranger, and I talked to somebody else about this, like in Genesis 49, which I don't know how you can say Samuel had access to this text. I seriously have issues with this prophecy. The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. Why would the Levite, the prophet Samuel, anoint a Benjaminite as king when this prophecy says the scepter shall not depart from Judah? The only way he could do that is if he didn't have this writing, that this came later to defend David. Why would Yah anoint a Benjaminite as king when Jacob supposedly is making a prophecy about the kingship always being with Judah? None of these make sense. And that's without Shemuel's other sins when he was anointing a king, when that even in 1 Samuel 8 it says that they've rejected Yah by doing so. So every king from David onwards is illegitimate. Remember what the Torah commandment says for that, Deuteronomy 17. That he has to be among your brothers. So who's considered a brother? Well, go to Deuteronomy 23. No one of an illegitimate birth shall enter the assembly of Yah. No, even to the 10th generation, none of his seed shall enter the assembly of Yah. This means that anyone who is illegitimate of birth shall not be a brother. No Ammonite or Moabite shall enter the assembly of Yah. Even to the 10th generation, none of their seed shall enter the assembly of Yah. Okay, so now go to Ruth. This is David's lineage. So Naomi returned with her Ruth, the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law, who returned from the fields of Moab. Why do you think the first man that Ruth went to rejected her? That he refused to do what was right for the widow, to give her seed. He rejected her because she was a Moabitess. And, I've heard so many bad interpretations of this text. The text clearly says what it says. Ruth, the Moabitess. But it even gets more interesting when you go to the history. 1 Samuel 16. When Samuel is going to anoint David, right? And Samuel comes to the house of Jesse. And remember, Jesse is of a Moabitess. And Jesse has his 7 sons pass before Samuel, but then Samuel said to Jesse, Yahweh has not chosen these. And Samuel said to Jesse, are all these all your young men? And he said, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he is shepherding the sheep. Then Samuel said, send and bring him, for we will not turn around until he comes here. Why was David not included with the other sons? Like, no Christian ever asked this. No Talmudist ever asked this. Why was he separated? See, this is how many red flags Yah is planting, even in the Tanakh, to turn back to him alone. Why was he not included? Why was he an outcast? And, this is where you have to really understand allegory. Judges 11, it says this of Jephthah. Now, Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty man of valor. He was the son of a harlot, and Gilead became the father of Jephthah. And Gilead's wife bore him sons, and when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah out and said to him, you shall not have an inheritance in our father's house, for you are the son of another woman. This is the seed of David, the Moabitess. But I think even Jesse had a relationship he should not have had. This is something David talks about in Psalm 51 after he's confronted about his adultery and murder. Be gracious to me, O God, according to your loving kindness, according to the abundance of your compassion. Blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly from my iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is ever before me. Against you and you only have I sinned, and done what is evil in your sight, so that you are justified when you speak, and pure when you judge. Behold, I was brought forth in iniquity. And they love this one to say we have a sin in us, right? But this is David speaking directly about his mother, that there was some sin that Jesse committed between his mother and him to produce David. It's likely that even Jesse had intimacy with someone that was forbidden, a harlot, a Moabitess. I don't know. But even without that, David is of a Moabitess. His whole seed, Jesse and David's children, all of them, they're all not brethren according to Torah. So Jephthah was a false judge. Yes, we just went over that. And, that story is allegory. Because what did Jephthah do when he became the king, the judge? He immediately makes an oath to take the life of whatever walks through the door next, and his daughter walks through the door. He commits human sacrifice. This is allegory, and I've talked about that before. Like, Judges, whoever wrote this is clearly writing allegory of why Israel fell and got divided. It's clearly allegory. That Solomon fell into those sins, and we'll get into that. Let me ask you, where in Torah does it say that a man is whatever nation his mother was? Well, that is not how inheritance works. But Torah is absolutely clear that you are not to marry a Moabitess. Where in Torah does it say a man cannot be a Jew if his mother was not a Jew? I don't care about Jewry. It's about being of Israel. I've got news for you. The rule is not in Torah that is modern day nation of Israel's immigration policy. It never existed in Judaism. I don't even know why he's going there. I never defended Judaism. I never defended modern day Israel. I think it's a Masonic deception. So let's go to Solomon. That tells us a lot more in this story as well. 1 Kings 3 first. Then Solomon formed a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her to the city of David until he had completed building his own house and the house of Yahweh and all around Jerusalem. So already we see Solomon breaking covenant with Yah. And, people just read over this stuff. They don't even realize this because they don't know Torah. It's not in their heart. Solomon cannot marry the daughter of Pharaoh. It's forbidden by Torah. He can't. The people were still sacrificing on the high places, forbidden by Torah. And if it was still happening, it means it was happening under David. And he did nothing about it because there was no house built for the name of Yahweh until those days. This is what's called a straw man fallacy. The fact that there was no house is false. There was the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. This is the same sort of thing you see Paul do. This absolute garbage theology. The people were still sacrificing on high places because their heart was not for Yah alone. Building a temple of stone doesn't fix that. And we see that in the history. After the temple is built, they're still sacrificing on high places. And Solomon loved Yahweh, walking in the statutes of his father David, except, see this word? Except he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. So this is already like verse for verse, like 3 sins of Solomon. He formed a marriage alliances against Torah. He allowed his sacrifice to continue on the high places, and he did not walk completely in the statutes of Yah. He sacrificed and burned incense on the high places himself. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there. Why did he go to Gibeon? Was the tent of meeting there? No. For that was a great high place. Oh, that's why. A place that's forbidden for you to go to. Leviticus 26:30, I will then destroy your high places, cut down your incense altars, and give your corpses to lie in the corpses of your idols. My soul shall loathe you. This is the curses. And this is what happened to Israel twice. And I think it's going to happen again before the return happens, because they're still doing this. The remnant of the Jews is still doing this. Their prayers to the brick wall are an abomination. Did it happen in the morning that Balak took Balaam, brought him up to the high places of Baal? See, this is what is at the high places, these false gods. Then you shall dispossess all the inhabitants of the land from before you, and destroy all their carved stones, and destroy all their molten images, and demolish all their high places. This is a Torah commandment, to demolish them. Blessed are you, O Israel, who is like you, a people saved by Yahweh, who is the shield of your help and the sword of your majesty. So your enemies will cower before you, and you will tread upon their high places. This is a consistent message, but this is important for what comes next. Like, we have 4 verses now describing the sins of Solomon. And then we get this verse. In Gibeon, Yahweh appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and Elohim said, ask, what should I give to you? You see, everything is intentional. Why is it telling you that, Solomon had this dream? Deuteronomy 13. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and what happens after this dream? He's given the supposed wisdom, right? And he gives a sign or a wonder of his wisdom. And the sign or wonder comes true concerning which he spoke to you, saying, let us walk after other Elohim, then let us serve them. You'll say, well, Solomon didn't walk after other Oh, come on. It just literally told you that. It literally tells you he's at the high places of Gibeon, probably sacrificing to Baal already before he had 1,000 wives. He's already profaned Yah. So this wisdom he's receiving can't be from Yah. It's a test. Then Solomon said, you have shown great loving kindness to your slave David, my father, according to how he walked with you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart toward you, and you have kept for him this great loving kindness, that you have given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. So he gives this wisdom, right? And then the sign of wonder is him judging wisely, quote unquote, later on. The two women who were harlots, well, again, you just read past it. You're like, Mach speed. Got to read through the whole Bible in a year. Slow down. What does it mean they were harlots? They were temple prostitutes, probably for Molech or Baal. And one woman said, "Oh, my Lord, this woman and I live in the same house and gave birth to a child and while she was in the house. And it happened on the third day after I gave birth that the woman also gave birth to a child and we were together. There was no stranger with us in the house, only the two of us in the house. And this woman's son died in the night because she lay on him. So she arose in the middle of the night and took my son from beside me while your maidservant slept and laid him in her bosom and laid her dead son in my bosom. When I arose to morning to nurse my son, behold, he was dead. But when I looked at him carefully in the morning, behold, he was not my son whom I had born. Then the other woman said, No, for the living one is my son, and the dead one is yours. But the first woman said, No, for the dead one is your son, and the living one is my son. Thus they spoke before the king. And the king said, The one says, This one is my son, then your son is the dead one. And the other says, No, for your son is the dead one, and my son is the living one. And the king said, Get me a sword. So they brought a sword before the king. Divide the child in two. Okay, so now we have the king using the wisdom of threatening human sacrifice. And of course, everything turns out fine, right? Oh, yeah, everything turns out fine. Remember King Saul? 1 Samuel 15, Now go and strike the Amalek and devote to destruction all that he has. Do not spare him. Put to death both man and woman, infant and nursing baby, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. But here in Jerusalem, the wise King Solomon doesn't devote to destruction all of the pagan cultures around him. He allows them to prosper. I mean, I don't think people really are reading the Bible like they think they are. At 1 Kings 11, let's go to the end of Solomon's reign now. And there's a lot of interesting stuff. Him multiplying horses, multiplying wives, him turning his house into a profanity because, it has the sacred geometry of the Masons in it, which a lot of people don't even catch. And the temple itself is a profanity. In Exodus 20, near the end of the chapter, it says, You shall make an altar of earth for me, and you shall sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and your peace offerings, your sheep and your oxen. In every place where I cause my name to be remembered, I will come to you and bless you. And if you make an altar of stone for me, you shall not build it of cut stones. For if you wield your tool on it, you will profane it. And you shall not go up by steps to my altar, so that your nakedness will not be exposed on it. And I've shown how David exposed his nakedness in front of the Ark of the Covenant, which was also a profanity. But the stone temple was made of cut stone and had steps going up to it. Are you really reading Torah? Do you really understand how the kings completely violated Torah? Why this kingdom was divided? Why it still remains divided and scattered? And this all goes back to the curses. So now King Solomon loved many foreign women, along with the daughter of the Pharaoh, the Moabite, the Ammonite, the Edomite, the Sidonian, the Hittite women, from the nations concerning which Yahweh said to the sons of Israel, You shall not go along with them, nor shall they go along with you, for they will surely turn your heart away after other gods. Okay? You realize that's Torah, right? You shall cut no covenant with them or with their gods. They shall not live in your land. And what do we see at the beginning? They're living in the land. They're sacrificing to the same high places, lest they make you sin against me. For if you serve their Elohim, it will surely be a snare to you. and you take some of his daughters for your sons, and your daughters play the harlots with their gods, and cause your sons also to play the harlot with their gods. And furthermore, you shall not intermarry with them. You shall not give your daughters to their sons, nor shall you take their daughters for your sons. For they will turn your sons away from following me, and they will serve other gods. Then the anger of Yahweh will be kindled against you, and he will destroy you quickly. And you remember what he asked Tommy. He says, does Torah say that a man is whatever nation his mother is? No. The problem is, Torah prohibits repeatedly, as we just shown, that an Israelite marry a foreign woman, lest it take his heart astray. Now you say, well, Ruth converted. Ruth can't convert. She's a Moabitess. The commandment on conversion for a Moabite doesn't say, well, if it's a woman, they can convert. Well, how is that possible when Torah also forbids marrying the foreign women? No Ammonite or a Moabite shall enter the assembly of Yah. Does it say it's just males? No. And it doesn't say that in the seed. None of their seed shall ever enter the assembly of Yah. All right, so let's go to the next question. You just contradicted yourself by saying the king can't be the son of a Moabite, but then said David was the son of a Moabite. Again, as I'm showing you here, I'm not contradicting myself, and that's what I've said here. I've many times said David was an invalid king by Torah. Many times. Jesus is distantly descended from the same Moabite. Correct. Correct. And there's no sacrifice that fixes this problem. He can't sacrifice himself and fix that he's from a Moabite. If Jesus is eliminated because of Ruth and Rahab, then so is David and every king in his dynasty. Correct. And we're going to go through that right now because, you know, the Talmudists and the Christians, they love this prophecy in 2 Samuel 12 to point to their future Davidic king. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up one of your seed after you who will come forth from your own body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. When he commits iniquity, I will reprove him with the rod of men and the strikes from the son of men. But my loving kindness shall not be removed from him, as I removed it from Saul, whom I removed from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall endure before me forever. Your throne shall be established forever. So, number one, even if you want to believe that David was a valid king, this is not an unconditional promise. None of Yah's promises are unconditional. Covenants have conditions. And this is where, you know, the Talmudist utterly errs in calling the Noahide promise the same as the covenant. It's not the same. It's an unconditional promise that regardless of man's sinful ways, he will not destroy the earth again. It's unconditional and universal to all mankind. But his covenant to Israel is conditional. And that's what we just went over reading Deuteronomy 27 to 32, the conditions of the covenant. That if you obey, he will prosper you. If you disobey, he will strike you down, blot you out. And that's important to realize. Number two, like all prophecy, this was about David, not future generations. It says even here, from your own body, not from his son's body. It's David's son. That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about some future Davidic king. It's not talking about Jesus. Let's go forward now. 2 Samuel 12. And then Yahweh sent Nathan to David, and he came to him and said, there were 2 men in one city, and the one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a great many flocks and herds, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb, which he bought and nourished, and it grew up together with him and his children. And it would eat his morsel of bread and drink and his cup, and to lie in his bosom, and he was like a daughter to him. Now a visitor came to the rich man, and he was unwilling to take from his own flock or his own herd, to prepare for the traveler who had come to him. Rather, he took the poor man's ewe lamb and prepared it for the man who had come to him. Then David's anger greatly burned against that man, and he said to Nathan, "As Yah lives, surely the man who has done this deserves to die. And he must make restitution for the lamb fourfold, because he did this thing and had no compassion." And then Nathan said to David, "You are the man. And thus says Yah, the God of Israel, it is I who anointed you king over Israel. It is I who delivered you from the hand of Saul. I also gave you your master's house and your master's wives into your care. And I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I would have added to you many more like these things. Why have you despised the word of Yah by doing evil in his sight? You have struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword. You have taken his wife to be your wife, and you have killed him with the sword of the sons of Ammon. So now the sword shall never depart from your house." This is a powerful prophecy. The sword shall never depart from your house. Let's keep that in mind. What he's saying is powerful, and I believe this is the blotting out of that promise you read in 2 Samuel 7. It completely blots it out. And I have come to see that what the words of Yeshua are saying are a completion of this prophecy. That through him, the house of Judah was completely destroyed. Because you have despised me and have taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife, thus says Yahweh, behold, I will raise up evil against you from your own household. I will even take your wives from before your sight and give them to your companion, and he will lie with your wives in the sight of his son. Indeed, you did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel, before the sun. So this is what happens in the life of David, right? One son rapes one of his daughters. David does nothing about it. Another son rises up to kill that son. David runs away, does nothing about it. And then ultimately, David chooses the son of the harlot, the Hittite, who again is against Torah, to be the heir. And why does he do that? Because Bathsheba convinced him to make Solomon the heir. How many red flags does somebody need to say something is not right here? Why is Solomon not the firstborn son, the rightful heir? Why is he the son of the woman that David was adultering with? And not just that, a Hittite. Absolutely forbidden by Torah that he be a brethren. Remember with Deuteronomy 17, the requirement that he be a brother, not someone the son of a foreign woman. Now let's go back to 1 Kings 11. So you have a similar situation happen where we see a prophet come to him, right? Now Yah was angry with Solomon because his heart was turned from Yah, the Elohim of Israel, who had appeared to him twice. And he commanded him concerning this thing that he should not walk after other Elohim, but he did not keep what Yah had commanded. So Yah said to Solomon, because this has happened with you, you have not kept my covenant and my statutes which I commanded to you, so I will surely tear the kingdom from you. That's it. That's the end of the Davidic covenant. It's gone. Done. You say, well, what about the other kings? Were the king of Israel? No. After the death of Solomon, as it says, the kingdom is divided. It's divided by the sword that was prophesied of in 1 Samuel 12. Now check this out. What does the idol tell you? In Matthew 12:25, right? In knowing their thoughts, he said to them, any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste. The sword shall not depart from the house of David. The kingdom will be divided. This is all from Yah to show you what's going on. The house of Judah was laid waste. Israel was laid waste because of their continued idolatry. And this includes the New Testament, includes much of what you read in the prophets. Wait, you're saying that because English words son and son are pronounced the same way that Christians are idolaters as sun worshippers? No, and the point I made in that video was this is what Constantine did. That idea goes back to Constantine here. Constantine Paul didn't even speak English. Never said they did. But they still worshipped the sun, Apollo, as the son of God. The fact that they sound similar in English, a mimetic, is probably because of that. This is very clear, and it's easy to understand. He wasn't a human sacrifice. You misunderstand the entire gospel. And this is a common argument from them that, it wasn't human sacrifice. Okay. Okay. How do you figure that when you say he died for your sin? He stood in our place, and we are not human sacrifice, and God punishes us for our sin. He stood in your place. Like, just open up the Torah and read it. Deuteronomy 24:16. Fathers shall not be put to death for their sons, nor sons shall be put to death for their fathers. Each shall be put to death for his own sin. He cannot stand in your place. So how could Jesus take in our place, make him a human sacrifice? Because you're still allowing an innocent man to die for your sin. That's dishonest. It's not just weights and measures. I mean, look at Deuteronomy 27:25. Cursed is he who takes a bribe. What's the bribe? That he died for you. That you have grace, not the law, right? Down innocent blood. This is what he says. He stood in my place as an innocent man for my sin. That's an abomination. It's an abomination. It's a curse. Jesus is more like your big brother taking a beating for you. Okay. I've heard other variations of this, that he was like a soldier jumping on a bomb. This is all nonsense. Who was doing the beating? Because he knows it would be the end of you, but he will recover because he is stronger. Okay. Oh my God. Help me. No. No, that's not how sin works. That's not how redemption works. Deuteronomy 30. So it will be when all these things have come upon you, the blessing and the curse which I've set before you, and you cause these things to return to your heart in all the nations where Yahweh your Elohim has banished you. Why did he banish them? Because they turned from Torah. They turned from Yah alone. Now, does he say in Deuteronomy 30 that he requires someone to die for you to be reconciled to him? And you return to Yah your Elohim. Listen to his voice with all your heart and soul according to all that I commanded you today, you and your sons. Yah your Elohim will return you from captivity. Return his compassion on you, and he will gather you again from all the peoples where Yah your Elohim has scattered you. No. He just says, return to Yah, listen to his voice with all your heart and soul according to all that he's commanded you today, you and your sons. That's it. He doesn't require the death of any man, especially not an innocent man. And here's another verse on that, Exodus 23:7. Keep far from a false charge. Do not kill the innocent or the righteous, for I will not justify the wicked or guilty. And yes, this is the same word in the Septuagint as Paul uses in Romans 4:5. Esebes. You can look it up. It's right here. Esebes.
Strong's G 1435. Doran.
Oh, sorry.
Doran.
What's that? right? Oh, that's a gift. That's why I got it wrong. There it is.
Strong's G 121. Athoos.
Nope. I gotta get my
Strong's
Greek
G
better.
765. Asabase.
There we go. Asabase. Which means what? Ungodly, ungodly men, wicked. And where is it used in the New Testament? Romans 4:5. But to the one who does not work, but believes upon him who justifies the ungodly. Directly contradicting what we just read in Exodus 23:7, and using the same language that's in the Septuagint. That he says he will not justify the guilty. So how do you get justified then if you're guilty? What do you do if you've sinned against the Most High? What can you do? Deuteronomy 30. Acknowledge that you've sinned and plead for his mercy. Because killing an innocent man for your sin does nothing. It does nothing for your sin. It's using sin to justify your sin. It's just like David. He sinned committing adultery and then justified it with murder of an innocent man. And that's quite interesting, actually. Was David's sin justified by the murder of an innocent man who he was just like Jesus, like your big brother? He stood in place and took the beating for David that he deserved. Was David's sins forgiven because Uriah the Hittite died? It's not a contradiction. Jesus is saying that his Father, God, also bears witness of him. No, it doesn't. And Father tells us in Exodus 4:22 that Israel is his son. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, thus says Yahweh, Israel is my son, my firstborn. But therefore, he is not alone in bearing witness. Then he cites the Torah, which says that when two men say the same thing, it must be true. That's not what that passage means at all. Deuteronomy 19:15 is about convicting someone of sin. It's not, and you can't go and use Torah to justify your sin. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. The Gospel of John is a 2nd century Gnostic esoteric dumpster fire. It has numerous contradictions because multiple redactors worked on it. You have not looked at the whole passage. No, I did look at the whole passage. I've read the New Testament numerous times. Remember, I used to be a Christian. I used to be Messianic before coming out of it. Jesus is the bronze snake. Absolutely agree. Absolutely. The bronze snake was a test. It was a test of whether you would turn holy to Yah or holy to Yahweh. And this is what they focus on, right? The simple act of faith is enough to save you. Number one, it did not save them. It didn't. Yes, they were healed from the bite of the serpent because of that. But they did not enter the land. Not a single person that was cursed because of the serpents that looked upon that cursed object entered the land. Then Yahweh heard the sounds of your words, and he was angry and swore an oath, saying, not one of these men, this evil generation, shall see the good land which I swore to your fathers. Do you think Caleb and Yehoshua son of Nun, the adults that were in Egypt, that they were there cursing Yah, that the snakes attacked them? No. Do you think they looked on the bronze serpent to be healed then? No. Yehoshua son of Nun and Caleb had no reason to look at this cursed object. None. And they entered the land. They were saved. And look at what it says. Who looked on this object? Who looked on the curse? And it happened that if a serpent bit any man, when he looked to the bronze serpent, he lived. Who was the serpent's biting? Go back. And the people spoke against Elohim and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food, no water, and we loathe this miserable food. So Yahweh sent fiery serpents among the people, and they bit the people, that many people of Israel died. The people being bit were those grumbling against Moses and Yah. The people, therefore, that would need to look on this cursed object are those that were cursed. So yes, if they looked at it through Yah's mercy, they lived, but they didn't enter the promised land. They weren't saved. So then why did Yah command Moses to do this? It was a test. I don't think people realize how much he tests us, that he tests our loyalty. And look what the people again do. Do they repent and confess their sins? Do they repent or confess their sins? No, they go to Moses. We have sinned because we have spoken against Yah and against you. You pray to Yah that he may remove the serpents for us. And then Moses prayed for the people. And then Yah said to Moses, make a fiery serpent and set it on a standard. And it will be everyone who is bitten and looks at it will live. And Moses made a bronze serpent and set it on the standard. And it happened that if a serpent bit any man, when he looked at the serpent, he lived. Just like we read a chapter earlier, right? It's like all set up for you. It's all set up. So there's no water. And Yah spoke to Moses saying, take the rod and you and your brother Aaron assemble the congregation. Speak to the rock before their eyes that it may yield its water. You shall thus bring forth water from out of the rock and let the congregation of their beasts drink it. So Moses took the rod from before Yah, just as he had commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly before the rock. And he said to them, listen now, you rebels. Shall we bring forth water out from this rock? Then Moses raised high his hand, struck the rock twice with his rod, and water came forth abundantly. And the congregation and their beasts drank. Did you catch what happened there? Moses was commanded to speak to the rock. And Moses, this is why he was held to a higher standard. He saw and performed all these mighty signs and wonders that led Israel out of Egypt. And this is why I warn Christians about pursuing signs and wonders, because, you're going to be held to a higher standard, even if your New Testament was true and it's not. Moses was held to a higher standard because he performed these signs and wonders, because he heard the voice of Yah clearly, and it told him, speak to the rock. And he struck the rock. Did Yah then refuse to bring forth water? No. He brought forth water abundantly, and his mercy still came out on the people, even though Moses had sinned and failed the test. And this is what we see in Numbers 21. Again, the people grumbling. Yah sends the serpents. The people go to Moses, and Moses prays to Yah for what to do, and he's told to make an idol. He failed the test again. Twice. That's all that Tommy wrote. It took a little bit longer than I thought, so I'm going to call it a day. And shalom. I hope all that listen to this, you dig in and pursue Yah alone. Let no man be king over you. Amen.